Guys, we bought a graphics card for so cheap, we were sure that it was going to be a scam.
But you know what? It wasn't. This is the 6500 XT that we bought for $37, or more specifically, we bought 3 of them from eBay and they're brand new. And I'm trying to understand why it was sold so cheap, and we're gonna dive into that after a word from today's sponsor.
As an avid deal hunter, I'm always browsing the internet for the next best PC hardware deal. And one place that's always on my list to check is today's video sponsor, Jawa.gg. Jawa is an online marketplace for PC gamers like yourself to buy and sell your PC hardware and even full gaming PCs with the peace of mind of a backed community. It is no secret that buying used will save you money on your next PC build, and with Jawa's wide selection of PC components like GPUs, CPUs, and more, you can create the perfect price performance PC with ease. Something that's even cooler is the tech gods themselves, Linus Tech Tips, are going to be using Jawa.gg for the return of the popular series Scrapyard Wars. Now is the perfect time to give Jawa.gg a shot by checking the link in the description down below, and let me know in the comment section down below what kind of PC hardware deals you see on Jawa.gg today. Big thanks again to Jawa for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's get back to benchmarking that graphics card.
So you're probably wondering, how did we get a $140 graphics card for only $37? Well, as usual, we were scrolling through eBay and these happened to pop up from a pretty reputable seller, so of course we had to get in on the deal, and we decided to even buy 3 of them. Even though they had a lot more that we could have bought, we decided to play it safe because there was a good chance this was going to be fake or a scam, but it turns out these are somehow new Dell OEM cards.
No idea how the seller got a hold of them. They ended up selling 40 of these relatively quickly for $37 a pop, and yeah, they're 6500 XTs. They're still not the greatest graphics card in the world. They only have 4 gigs of VRAM and they are limited in some ways. Only have 2 display out and no video encoder, but again, $37 for a 6500 XT, and no matter how much you guys might hate this card, at $37 you really can't complain. And I do have to preface that these are all sold out now. This is definitely a one-off deal that we're able to take advantage of, and you might be able to also if you take a look at eBay and just do some browsing and stuff. But brand new OEM cards, no used like mining rig setup for $37, really can't complain. Let's give you guys a refresher real quick of the specs of the 6500 XT and then talk about our test bench that we're going to test it in. The AMD Radeon RX 6500 XT is a Navi 24 GPU with 4 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory. It launched at a price point of $199, which makes this even more ridiculous, especially considering it released in January 19th of 2022. This card is barely 2 years old. And one major limitation with this card is it is a PCI 4.0 card by 4, meaning you can physically see it on the card. You do not get the full by 16 lanes on this graphics card if you use it in a PC, which we'll talk about more later in the benchmarks and why we had to be very particular with the PC parts we selected when benchmarking it and for our future PC build with this graphics card. And it comes with a base clock of 2310 megahertz and a boost clock of 2815. All in all, again, $37, absolute steal. But we got to talk about our test bench real quick and how we're going to benchmark it to show you guys how well it performs.
So to go over the parts for the test bench, we have the Ryzen 7 7700X 8-core 16-thread processor. And cooling that CPU, we are using the Deepcool Assassin 4 in white. We have a B650 ROG Strix gaming Wi-Fi motherboard, 32 gigs of Corsair Vengeance DDR5 at 6000 MHz, a 4 terabyte Lexar Gen 4 NVMe SSD. We're powering this whole system with the PX1200 GWH from Deepcool, and the case is the Deepcool CH560 Digital. And now that we've talked about this GPU and this test bench, let's go ahead and throw them together and get into gaming.
Alright guys, now that we got this $37 6500 XT off the test bench and playing some games, let's go ahead and talk about the results because I think we got an absolute steal when it comes to this graphics card. Now the games we decided to test are as follows. We have Apex Legends, The Finals, Helldivers 2, Cyberpunk, Fortnite, and Forza Horizon 5. First up with Apex Legends, an esports title at 1080p high settings, we had no problems getting 120 plus FPS. Games like Apex, Fortnite, CSGO, League of Legends, Valorant will have no problem with the 6500 XT, and at the price point of $37 that we managed to find this card for, which, let me reiterate again, this is definitely here's a good example of things you can look out for and deal hunt for. Not saying that these are all readily available on eBay. You're going to go on eBay right now and you're probably not going to find these on there, but this is one of those deals that we really like to show you guys as a proof of concept that if you do deal hunting regularly, which I check deals every single morning on eBay, I go in the morning, type in graphics card, gaming PC, PC, sort by newly listed, and I find these deals all the time, guys, and you can definitely do that too. If you find one of these things for this price point, it's an absolute bargain, and especially since it's an OEM card, I would imagine this might pop up more often than you might think, especially with these pre-builds trying to get rid of all these 6500 XTs that do have some flaws that you'll see later in the benchmarks. But hey, Apex Legends, 120 plus FPS, perfect for this graphics card. But let's talk about a game that's not so perfect, the finals. We ran the finals at 1080p medium settings with no ray tracing and got 60 to 80 FPS, but our VRAM was peaking. This graphics card, again, only has 4 gigabytes of VRAM, which in 2024 for newer games just isn't going to cut it. We're really getting to the point where 8 gigabytes is almost the minimum standard if you want to play newer titles, but the finals is an exception because it is an esports title, but it's a more demanding esports title, and it did induce some really weird lag spikes that I really couldn't explain other than just VRAM limitation. Our CPU definitely isn't the problem. We'll talk more about that later in the benchmarks, but this is just a game that does show that the 6500 XT should have shipped with more VRAM. I would have been happy if it were shipped with 6 gigs of VRAM. I have seen there's some people making modded versions with 8 gigabytes, but the price just doesn't make any sense, so it's still really not worth buying. But hey, we're talking about a $37 card in this video. If you get one of these for $37, you really can't complain too much. Now let's dive into Helldivers 2, which I will say was the weirdest performance I've ever seen in one of these GPU benchmark videos. We're in the main ship and we're walking around and I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be an absolute laggy experience running low settings with performance FSR on low. We're getting like 30 plus FPS, it's not good at all. But then once we drop onto a planet, which I will say the planet we did drop on was kind of a dark, cloudy area and it was very centralized in a small location, we skyrocketed to 100 plus FPS. Really weird performance, but again, if you pay $37 for this graphics card, you can't really complain. Our test bench is a Ryzen 7 7700X, so we are using a really awesome CPU, and the reason we do that is so our GPU can reach its maximum potential without being held back by a CPU. Realistically, you would pair this GPU with like an i3 12100, which we will be doing here on the channel, so stay subscribed for that, and you would have a really awesome little budget gaming PC and get really close to the results we're getting. But yeah, the CPU does help us out here a little bit, and I imagine that's what's causing the FPS to just skyrocket like that when we landed on the planet. So Helldivers 2, take with a grain of salt. I don't really think this card is great for it. If you are willing to deal with those weird issues, potentially, but we'll be sure to rerun Helldivers 2 when we benchmark it with our i3 system. Now let's dive into another demanding game. We got Cyberpunk at 1080p medium settings with no FSR. We end up getting a 52 FPS average with a minimum of 41 and a max of 67. Again, a very demanding game that probably doesn't like that this graphics card only has 4 gigabytes of VRAM, which again is going to really hold it back long term. But getting medium setting 1080p, almost 60 FPS, pretty impressive for $37. I'm going to keep going back to that. The fact that we got this for $37 is why I'm making this video. The 6500 XT is really only worth it if you get it like $90, $80 or less if you're doing a really budget build. There's too many good used options right now at the $100 to $150 mark that make this card look awful, like the RX 5700 XT or RX 5700. Even the 1660 Super is a way better option. But for this video, for $37, I like these performance numbers. And you do have the FSR option if you want to, but we decided to turn it off to show the real raw performance. Now let's talk about Fortnite, which, big disclaimer, this is a game that is very CPU bound, but you do see some GPU performance here and there when you are running DX12, which we are running, which is optimized for AMD GPUs. And on DX12 performance mode, we got 160 plus FPS with 200 at times. Very playable, but again, it does depend on what CPU you pair with this GPU. With an i3, I would imagine you're going to get a little bit less FPS. I'd say on average, probably like 100 to 120. Pretty smooth experience overall. But Fortnite continues to surprise me with AMD GPUs. It performed way better than it used to, especially on DX12 mode. So really, if you are building a PC for Fortnite nowadays, you might want to look at AMD because some of the performance I'm seeing on these budget GPUs is very impressive. And the last game we decided to test was Forza Horizon 5 on 1080p medium settings. We got an average of 78 FPS. All in all, the 6500 XT as a card on its own is not a great card. 4 gigs of VRAM is going to hold you back. It released at a really high price point, and it honestly is not a good buy unless you can find it on the used market for, oh, I don't know, what I found it for, $37. I think it's just a good proof of concept to show you guys that if you deal hunt on eBay regularly, like I mentioned at the beginning of these benchmarks, you can find deals like this and build really awesome budget PCs, whether you're into PC flipping or you just want to build a budget PC for yourself. Definitely keep an eye out for these deals deals on eBay, always go to eBay, type in graphics cards, sort by newly listed, hit buy it now, scroll all the way down and just keep checking that regularly and you'll find some one-off deals that maybe I'll even miss. And if you guys want to see some of these deals that are more long-standing that we're actually able to share, you should definitely go to our Twitter at Toasty Bros Tech and hit a follow on that, because we're trying to share more of these deals to you guys so you can actually see that they exist and you don't think there's just some YouTuber benefit that we have going on here. So now we finished the benchmarking section of this awesome graphics card deal we got. Let's bring Jackson back in here to wrap this video up real quick.
So guys, as you could have guessed, this card performed pretty well for the price. And when I say pretty well, I mean exceptionally well, because this card can play 1080p, esports titles, and usually get close to high refresh rate. And then even your AAA titles, most of them are playable, be it at lower settings. You can definitely get your 60 FPS. And like Matt was saying, the only real issue with the card, as long as you get it for the right price, is just pairing it with the right build. You need to make sure that you're getting a somewhat newer build that has PCIe Gen 4 built in.
And we are going to be doing that with an i3 12100 build here on the channel very soon, so stay subscribed for that. But yeah, regardless of the limitations that this card has to offer, in this specific use case, getting it for $37 was an absolute steal. And I want to know from you guys, if you saw this on eBay for 37 bucks, how many of them would you have bought? I need to know in the comments down below. And do keep in mind, there was only one listing picture that showed, well, not even the actual graphics card. It just showed a graphics card in a bag in a foam holder, and that's the only thing I had to go off of to buy these things. So would you have bought all 40? I need to know in the comments down below. If you want to shop on eBay for more deals for PC hardware, check the links in the description down below. They will be affiliate links and they will help us out.
And as always, we hope you guys enjoyed today's benchmark video. If you did, check out our other two YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/toastybros, and do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
So like Matt said, we will be doing a PC build with this graphics card, and it will be for sale at PCBros.tech. It'll have a 1-year parts and labor warranty.
And we'll have 2 other builds as well on PCBros.tech using these graphics cards, because we bought 3 of them. They're such a good price. We'll pass the savings along to you guys. Use code ToastyBros2 on checkout. You'll save 2% on your next purchase. See you guys later. Goodbye.